Chapter 10 of A Woman and the War. This is a LibraryVox recording. All LibraryVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibraryVox.org. Recording by Astrid Weinmann. A Woman and the War by Daisy Greville. Woman's War Work on the Land. The cry for women's service on the land is one I endeavored nearly 20 years ago to anticipate. It was at a time when the anxiety of girls to earn their own living was making itself manifest in every class, and when the wages paid to those who had broken away from the conventions of purely domestic life were miserably inadequate. I had heard how, in the dominions overseas, English women had been forced to learn open-air duties as best as they could. I had realized the natural instinct of many women for gardening, and I had no doubt that there would be some whose courage would not flinch from an experiment. Looking back to that season, I marvel at the progress feminism has wrought in the world. Then every development that was sought for men was in the case of women taboo. The only thing that a girl might do in the garden without defying the convention was the light job that could be accomplished without any fatigue. She might pluck roses. I have grave doubts as to whether she might plant or prune them. She might eat celery, but the digging of a trench or the earthing up of the plants would have been considered a most unladylike occupation. In fact, we suffered, as a sex, under the spell of that horrible word. Life for women has not been nearly so futile since it was abolished. In the years when I began first to find that the urgency of social problems was a bar to the further serenity of life, I, like other inexperienced people with reform at their hearts, dreamed dreams and saw visions. I had seen at Easton and Warwick the women of the working classes enjoying the hard work of the garden and the fields. I, too, had tried my hand, always to find that I was rewarded with a quickly renewed sense of the joy of life. Even when weather conditions were unfavorable, the rest after labor was in itself atonement for the toil. It was so unlike other rest. Then I began to see an England in which girls and young women, ceasing to be merely ladylike, would be healthier, happier, and more useful than they had been in the years of which I could take count. I could not help realizing that the desire for active physical exercise could not be limited to one sex, save in obedience to a convention that ignored human needs. It seemed to me as though the truth would be apparent to everybody, that nobody who could lend a helping hand would withhold it. Naturally, I was soon undeceived. I was assured that only the children of working farmers and laborers could possibly milk the dairy herd, that gardening work in many of its aspects would be beyond the limits of the capacity of the gently nurtured. The girl market gardener was voted an impossibility. As landscape gardener, I was assured she could never compete with a man. Poultry farming and stock breeding were even voted indelicate. Household management, to enable girls to take posts as housekeepers in public institutions or large private houses, was regarded as something to be acquired without training, and even the commercial side of farm management was vetoed as a study for girls, as though a well-managed farm would be the worse for a competent bookkeeper because that bookkeeper chanced to be a daughter instead of a son of the house. I could prolong the list of vetoes and taboos that were presented to me, but no useful service would be served in doing so. I am only concerned to remember now, after nearly 20 years, that I was regarded as an unpractical dreamer and that, as I write, There are letters on my desk asking me if I cannot recommend lady gardeners and agriculturists of all descriptions. I cannot. They are all fully occupied. Many are at work in England. Not a few are busy thousands of miles overseas, in Canada, Australia, and the United States. Think of the freedom and the fullness of their lives. Never a taboo to stand between them and any sane development. Today I see a great expansion of women's labors under the sun. The trouble is that the demand outstrips the supply. The public, whose apathy has given only a minimum of stimulus to the progress of the girl agriculturist, has become suddenly claimant. It demands the impossible. The girls' agricultural colleges are to improvise the highly trained, skilled article. It is as though they should demand the finished fruits of the orchard before the budding and flowering time of the trees has been fulfilled. I am hoping that this will not lead to a reaction, and that those whose demand for ready-made service brings inevitably unsatisfactory results will not regard woman's work in the light that their own thoughtlessness must shed upon it. Only those of us who understand the curriculum and the time required to follow it to the appointed end know that you must be thorough if you would be successful. All the ordinary problems of the open-air life must be faced in training before they can be overcome in the practice of daily life in farm and garden. To us, this is a commonplace. To those who do not know the land and its labor, it comes as a surprise and an annoyance. I established the hostel at Reading, near the great agricultural college, in the year 1898, and it remained there for nearly 4 years, when the Reading premises began to prove inadequate to the purposes I had in view. Even when the ridicule ceased, the girls had not been popular at Reading, where the college students thought that they were intruders if they ventured beyond the dairy. There were certain advantages. For example, the heads of the house of Sutton opened their gardens at stated times, and the girls could see the most skilled work in operation. But I could not help thinking that if the idea was to grow, it must have room and a congenial atmosphere for its development, and so it happened that the change was made. We moved to Studley Castle in Warwickshire, 16 miles from Birmingham, a rather modern place with 40 acres of gardens and pleasure grounds, wonderful outbuildings, built originally for racing stables, and nearly 250 acres of farmland, with woodlands and water in addition. In many respects, this was the ideal place for the work in hand. There are other institutions of similar kind in England today, and I am not claiming any special superiority for Studley. If I write of what is done there, it is merely because I know exactly what work is being carried on and the full measure of success that attends it. Studley is now run by a limited liability company in which I have no interest whatever. It differs from other agricultural colleges chiefly in the atmosphere, which is that of Girton or Newnham, and is deliberately preserved on grounds of economic policy. If our victory in the World War is to have in it the elements of permanence, it can only be by the thorough equipment of those who go out into the world to contend with the most highly trained nation under the sun, and, as far as woman's education is concerned, in whatever aspect, it has the advantage denied to the education of boys, of being free from old and paralyzing conventions. There is nothing that must be done merely because it has been done from time immemorial, and the agricultural colleges have been modern from their inception. The first thing to be considered is so to train the students that they are able gradually to develop a measure of physical strength, and at the same time to teach them how to obtain a maximum of result from a minimum of effort. Many an untrained man could only accomplish with great exertion what a trained woman can do without difficulty. In a little while, not only do the spade and the wheelbarrow lose all their terrors, but the comparatively light modern plough can be handled even on fairly heavy land without excessive fatigue. Then the balance must be preserved between practice and theory. You will remember that the method of combining the two is not new. Mr. Wackford Squeers taught it at Dotheboys Hall, Winder, a casement, now go and clean them. Perhaps this was the germ of the idea. Who knows? The lecturer in the college is supplemented by the expert in the field, dairy and garden, and the student is not limited to the grounds of the institution, ample though they be. On outlying farms, in private gardens, market gardens, at country flower shows and exhibitions, the pupils of this and other colleges are expected to demonstrate their efficiency, thereby learning how the familiar problems may vary in their incidence and application. There is no element of secrecy. All that is taught and all that is learned is open to the inspection of the section of the public that is interested. The college has terms similar to those of school and university, 39 weeks of work and 13 of holiday, and while girls are admitted as soon as their school education is finished, at the age of 16 or thereabouts, women can join at any age. If they have the energy and determination, they are never too late to learn. For schoolgirls over 12 years of age who intend to take up agricultural or garden work when school days are over, there are holiday classes at which the prentice work may be studied under the most pleasant conditions possible. Most of the schoolgirls who take this course regard it as an ideal holiday. For the benefit of adults who desire a special study, short courses can be arranged at all times, but it is, of course, well understood that such courses do not make the student truly representative of the college tuition. It has long been recognized that you cannot make agriculturists or horticulturists in a hurry. The minimum period of complete study is 2 years, but the complete course that turns out the finished student is a full 3 years. It is in view of this hard truth that I have eyed askance the suggestion that a course that is to be practical can be crowded into 3 months. Such a term would hardly avail a genius. As far as I have been able to see, the not very considerable percentage of failures associated with agricultural colleges is due to the inability of students to distinguish between enthusiasm and staying power. They have not realized that work must be done at every season and in nearly all weather, that the sun is not always shining, and that the novelty of association with nature will wear away from all who are not nature lovers at heart and by instinct. That is why I am afraid of short-term training. 2 or 3 years develop not only aptitude, but character. Enthusiasms have time to take a fresh and long lease of life. Training brings confidence too. Girls who wish to be gardeners, agriculturists, poultry farmers, estate managers, and the rest will do well to remember that the new or the modern methods they are taught in an up-to-date institution are not necessarily followed in the place where they get their first engagement. If they have to control men, they must expect to find a certain intolerance of change, a certain resentment of direction. Unless they are thoroughly sure of themselves, they cannot supervise the work of others. What the student has to remember is that most of the methods she will find outside her training college are wasteful, obsolete, or second-rate. Scientific training is unknown to the average gardener, market gardener, dairy farmer, and poultry keeper. Our old countryside is run on amazingly inept lines. Foolishness of any kind that has behind it the sanction of a single generation is sacrosanct. If a father has farmed or gardened foolishly, that special manner of foolishness is sacred to his son. We have always relied upon the foreigner. He sends us fruit, eggs, honey, vegetables, corn, cattle food. While the seas are open, we need never go hungry. I do not pretend that we can do without him for everything, but we can certainly do very much more in the future than we have done in the past, and we have been warned by our government to do it. That is why I have so much hope for the future of the woman on the land. I feel that her work is no longer concerned with hobbies and private profit. Henceforward it is, in effect, a kind of public service. The government is avowedly anxious for the future of the land, frankly concerned to check the annual outlay of millions of pounds for foodstuffs that we are well able to raise at home. Why, for example, should we spend £40,000 a year upon honey, to name what our American friends would call a sideline, when we have a wealth of flowers and fruit blossoms that would not only yield all that is required, but would even enable us to substitute honey for much of the sugar that is only sold to us when it has been chemically treated to improve appearance at the expense of quality? Why must we gather eggs from the far ends of the earth and bacon from countries where pigs are fed as they are said to be fed in China? When I think of the thousands of women who are ready, willing, and if properly trained, able to take a hand in the great task of feeding the people, it seems to me that the seed I sowed in 1898, to the accompaniment of much amusement, derision, and hostile criticism, has grown into a very sturdy and healthy tree. I even venture to think that the fruits will be more refreshing than those of the Insurance Act itself. As far as the records I have been able to examine teach me, there have been very few failures to achieve success among the women who have taken resolutely and completely to this comparatively new walk in life. The students have done more than merely earn a comfortable living. They have been the disseminators of the new ideas, the modern theories of agriculture, horticulture, and apiculture, the introducers of order and method into realms where chaos ruled amiably and ineffectively. In many cases they have even succeeded so far as to disarm prejudice and to persuade omniscient men that a method is not good merely because it is customary or easy to follow. And what they have done is small by the side of what they may hope to do. What is needed just now, when the government is really awake to the importance of women's work on the land, is an extension of the agricultural colleges and a series of state grants. At present, the work is costly. The upkeep of a big institution is expensive because you cannot treat the land precisely as you would for utility farming. It is there to teach pupils, to carry out demonstrations. So it is with the glass that is so costly to build and to heat. Then, again, professors, the best in the country, must be asked to lecture, and while agricultural colleges are in the heart of the country, the professors are probably living in distant university towns, so that their lectures are bound to be costly. Let us remember, too, quite frankly, that there is not much money for the girl who is not able to start a little establishment of her own or to go into partnership. There's a happy, healthy, useful life. There is valuable service, quite unrecorded, to the public at large, but the monetary reward is of the slightest and the training is long. It is necessary, then, in view of the growing demand for the work of women's hands, that the government should make grants to the established colleges as they make grants to other educational bodies, and it would be well if every county council that does not conduct an agricultural college of its own would give a few scholarships annually in the college nearest to its county town. These steps are needed to give an impetus to the work that is now being done. Had they been taken when first I pleaded for them, we should have been in quite a different position today. There would, at least, have been enough capable workers to meet the most pressing demands. At present, they tell me that at Studley every post brings applications for gardeners and dairy workers, for women competent to train others, but there is not a single disengaged pupil. Doubtless a similar state of things obtains at the other colleges in Kent, Worcestershire, Sussex, and elsewhere. It has been seen that properly trained women can do all the work of farm and garden. Even ploughing is not beyond them, save on very stiff clay soils. They are entirely successful in handling animals. Horses, cows, bullocks, sheep, pigs, and goats are all tractable when cared for by women. They are taught at all well-conducted institutions to substitute knack for force, and they have, as is admitted on all hands, the right temperament for tasks that demand not only time, but patience. As beekeepers they do very well, the gift of delicate handling standing them in good stead, and in the glasshouses they are easily first. Dr. Hamilton, the energetic and gifted warden of Studley, tells me that she finds that the health of girls engaged upon the land, whether in the garden or on the farm, is good, and that many who arrive at the college in a delicate state of health grow very much stronger. She finds that the work makes women not only healthy, but happy, presumably because happiness is largely a product of good health. Perhaps the needs of the country will be the determining factor in sending women to the land in the summer times before us, but we may take it for granted that one of the results of war will be the large extension of the realm of the women worker of the field and garden. We cannot shut our eyes to the sad truth that there will be war widows in their thousands, and countless girls whose chances of married happiness have been destroyed. To many of these, the land will supply the only anodyne that life has to offer. In hard work and the open air, they will learn to forget. In the development of garden or farm or orchard, they will find something to interest them. With their advent, we may look to find a great addition to the national food supply, a great saving of money that has gone hitherto across the Channel or the Atlantic Ocean. I am inclined to think that women are more likely than men to take advantage of the homeland opportunities. Men who have lived strenuously and dangerously may not be found content with a handful of acres and a cartload of restrictions at home, when the far-flung dominions overseas have so much more with which to tempt them. I see that Sir Harry Verney's committee, appointed to consider the question of land settlement for soldiers and sailors, suggested holdings of 25 acres for dairy farming and 4-acre holdings for pigs, poultry, fruit, etc. These last are to cost £24 per annum. Consider as against this the 160-acre grant of the Canadian government, the additions made by the Canadian Pacific Railway, and, perhaps, other great corporations, whereby a settler finds a house, farm buildings, 50 acres broken up and planted with wheat. There the rent is part payment of the purchase price. I do not think the government is going to hold soldiers and sailors with anything Sir Harry Verney and his committee men propose to offer. But I do think that if the government will make a like offer to the women of England and will arrange to do for them what it proposes to do for the men, this latest scheme of small holdings might well be a success. Women could and would make an agricultural colony. They delight in doing small things well. They are frugal and temperate. They can make much out of very little. Whatever their war experiences and suffering, it will not have developed in them the spirit of unrest. Their ambitions do not seek the particular kind of achievement that appeals most to men. They find happiness where a man might find boredom. They love the sense of independence, the freedom and simplicity that country life affords and enjoins. Above all else that concerns woman's career on the land, it has clearly been shown now that in times of crisis, the men who work on the land may be called away, and our home food supplies may be jeopardized by their absence. In these circumstances, the movement must spread. The flower and market garden, the field, the conservatory, and the outhouse must be recognized as providing a pleasant sphere of activity for girls and women, and there is more than enough land in these islands to provide small holdings for many years to come for all who have the will and the capacity to develop them. In conclusion, let me utter a warning that demands the attention of all who love their country. At the present time, we only produce about 20% of the food we eat. For the rest, we depend upon our mercantile marine and our power to hold not only the seas, but the skies above and the depths beneath. Without any comment, it seems to me that this simple and undeniable statement should suffice to settle the career of many a sturdy, country-loving English girl. End of chapter 10. Recording by Astrid Weinmann, London.